The midnight arrival. The twin moons of Nova Eris cast long shadows across the dusty plains as Dr. Kyle Ronan wiped exhaustion from his eyes. Another day done, he murmured to the empty clinic walls. The modest outpost medical facility had seen its usual parade of miners with radiation burns, settlers with dust fever, and the occasional spacer with more exotic ailments. Kyle checked his chronometer. Nearly midnight by colony standards. He'd been on his feet for 16 hours straight. The rural outpost rarely attracted medical professionals, which was precisely why he'd chosen it. 5 years since the raid that took Adira from him. 5 years of burying himself in work in this forgotten corner of space. He was reaching to power down the Y clinic systems when the proximity alert chimed softly. A stumbling figure appeared on the security feed, moving desperately toward the entrance, clutching something in its arms. "Emergency protocol engaged," Kyle commanded. The door slid open with a pneumatic hiss, revealing a cloaked figure swaying unsteadily. The hood fell back, unveiling a woman with striking features that marked her instantly as non-human. Her skin gleamed with a subtle purple luminescence in the harsh clinic lights. Delicate ridges traced her temples, and elegant pointed ears peeked through cascading silver-violet hair. But it was her eyes that froze Kyle in place. Brilliant amethyst with vertical pupils dilated in fear. "Please." Her voice carried a melodic resonance, unique to her species. "My son." In her arms lay a small boy, perhaps 6 or 7 by human standards. His purple skin had faded to a sickly lavender. His small chest barely moved beneath a makeshift pressure bandage soaked with iridescent fluid. Kale's training took over. "Bring him here," he directed, moving swiftly to prepare the examination table. "What happened?" "Freighter crash," she explained as she gently laid the child down. "We were passengers. The captain abandoned us with escape pods after emergency landing. The others." Her voice broke. There were no others. Kale's medical scanner hummed over the boy's small form. "He's Valeron," Kale observed, recognizing the species, though he'd treated few before. Nova Ari sat at the crossroads of several spacefaring civilizations, but relations remained cautious at best, hostile at worst. "Yes," she confirmed, watching Kale's every move with wary intensity. "I am Elira. This is my son, Seren." The scanner beeped urgently. "Internal bleeding bone. Fractures, energy depletion." Kale looked up. "I need to operate now." Elira's hands twisted in her tattered cloak. "I have no credits," she whispered. "The crash." "Everything we had." Kale was already prepping surgical tools. "That doesn't matter now." Surprise flickered across her exotic features. "But humans always." "Not this human," Kale interrupted firmly. "Now step back, please. I need space to work." For hours, Kale labored over the small alien boy, adapting human medical techniques to Valeron physiology. The child's unique biology presented challenges, but Kale's years on the frontier had taught him improvisation. A conventional tissue regenerator wouldn't work on Valeran cells, so he recalibrated the frequencies using knowledge from his limited database on xenobiology. Throughout the procedure, Elira remained silent, her violet eyes never leaving her son. Her quiet dignity impressed Kale. Even in crisis, she maintained a composed grace that spoke of inner strength. Dawn was breaking when Kale finally stepped back from the table. "He'll live," he announced, wiping perspiration from his brow. "His natural healing abilities are remarkable now that we've stopped the bleeding and set the bones." Elira approached the table, her fingers hovering just above her son's face. "Seren," she whispered. The boy's eyelids fluttered in response. She turned to Kyle, her eyes shimmering with emotion. "You saved him when others would have turned us away." Her voice carried both wonder and gratitude. "Why?" Kyle looked at the sleeping child, feeling something stir within him, something he'd thought long dead. "Because it's what anyone should do," he replied simply, though they both knew that wasn't true. Not here. Not for her kind. As morning light spilled through the clinic windows, Kale realized his life had somehow shifted course in the span of a single night. The arrival of these two strangers, had awakened something he'd kept buried for too long. Part 2. Whispers Across Stars. You need rest, Kale told Elira after checking Seren's vitals the following morning. There's a spare room behind the clinic. He hesitated, then added, You're both safe here. Elira's gaze lingered on her sleeping son. Your kindness is unexpected, Doctor. Her melodic accent, wrapped around each word like silk. My people have stories about humans few and well. I imagine we have similar tales about Valerons, Kale admitted with a rueful smile. Fear breeds in ignorance. Days passed as Seren's condition steadily improved. The boy remained weak, but his natural healing abilities combined with Kyle's treatments worked wonders. Kyle found himself fascinated by the child's resilience and curious nature. Once consciousness returned, Seren bombarded him with questions about human medicine, human food, human everything. Do all humans have only 5 fingers? Seren asked one afternoon as Kyle checked his healing wounds. Yes, we do. Kyle replied, amused. Just like you. But your skin is different. Seren observed, touching Kale's hand with his own purple one. And you don't glow when you're happy. Kale glanced at Elira, who stood nearby. Her skin indeed emitted a subtle luminescence that seemed to brighten with her mood. That's what makes the universe interesting, he told Seren. We're all different, yet similar in the ways that matter. In the evenings after Seren fell asleep, Kyle and Elira would sit in the small kitchen area, sharing quiet conversation. Over simple meals, she began to reveal fragments of her past. Valara was once peaceful. She explained one night, the dim lighting casting gentle shadows across her features. Our people value knowledge, emotional connection, harmony with our surroundings. Then the Krivari came. I've heard of them, Kyle nodded grimly. Resource pirates, essentially. They wanted our crystalline forests. Elira's voice grew distant. Living structures that have grown for millennia. They contain energy properties your scientists would call miraculous. Her luminescence dimmed noticeably. The Krivari don't negotiate. They take. Kyle found himself sharing his own past in return. Something about Elira's quiet presence made the words flow easier than they had in years. I came to Nova Aris with my wife Adira, he told, her watching steam rise from his cup. She was a botanist studying adaptive agriculture for colony worlds. We thought we were bringing hope to this place. He paused, memories washing over him. The raid happened 3 years after we arrived. Border pirates. They weren't interested in hostages. Elira's hand moved across the table, not quite touching his. You survived. My body did, Kale admitted. The rest of me has been going through motions ever since. One evening, Kale returned from treating a miner in a nearby outpost to find his quarters transformed. Soft light glowed from crystalline objects Elira had arranged around the room. A strange, sweet aroma filled the air. Seren is sleeping, she said, stepping from the kitchen area. I prepared a traditional meal to thank you. She gestured to an artfully arranged assortment of foods, some recognizable, others entirely alien. These are flavors of home. The meal was unlike anything Kale had ever experienced. Foods that shifted flavor as he ate them, beverages that warmed and cooled simultaneously, textures that seemed to respond to his enjoyment. This is incredible, he said, genuinely amazed. How did you create this with what we have here? Elira smiled mysteriously. Valerons adapt. She touched a small pouch at her waist. And I carry certain essentials when I travel, seeds, spices, memories. Memories? Kyle questioned. Her expression grew solemn. For my people, memories are tangible. They can be shared, given, preserved. She hesitated. It is how we maintain connection, across generations, across distance. Later, they stood outside beneath Nova Aris's twin moons. The night air carried a metallic chill, but neither seemed to notice. Elira's skin glowed softly in the darkness, casting her an ethereal light. Your son will be well enough to travel soon, Kyle said, breaking the comfortable silence. The thought brought an unexpected ache. Yes, she replied. watching the moons. There is a Valoran outpost 3 systems away. They would grant us sanctuary. She turned to him, her violet eyes reflecting starlight. What keeps you here, Kale? Besides ghosts? No one had asked him that question in years. Not even himself, I'm needed. He answered automatically, then realized the hollowness of his words. At least I thought I was. Need is different from purpose, Elira observed. One sustains existence, the other gives it meaning. Kale studied her face, finding himself drawn to the gentle curves of her features, the wisdom in her eyes, the quiet strength she carried. What is your purpose, Elira? Once it was to preserve our cultural knowledge, she replied. Now it is simply to keep Saren safe, give him a future worth having. She stepped closer. And yours? I used to know, Kale admitted. Now I'm not sure. Something shifted between them in that moment. Something neither had anticipated. When their hands finally met, fingers intertwining human and Valoran, it felt like worlds colliding in the gentlest possible way. Perhaps, Elira whispered, purposes can change. That night as Kale drifted toward sleep, he realized he'd laughed more in the past days than he had in years. The clinic that had been merely a place of work now felt alive with Elira's quiet grace and Serene's curious energy. For the first time since losing Adira, he found himself looking forward to tomorrow. What he couldn't know was how profoundly tomorrow would change everything. The memory gift morning brought an unexpected shift in Serene's condition. Kale found him feverish, his purple skin pulsing with an irregular glow. It's normal, Elira assured as Kale frantically checked vital signs. The final stage of Valaran healing. His energy systems are recalibrating. You might have mentioned this earlier, Kyle muttered, adjusting the environmental controls to match Valaran optimal conditions. Elira watched him with quiet amusement. Would you have understood if I had? Your medical texts barely acknowledge our existence, much less our physiology. She had a point, Kale conceded silently. Throughout the day, they took turns staying with Seren. As the boy's fever peaked, Elira sang in her native language melodies that seemed to shimmer in the air. The songs clearly comforted Seren but affected Kale just as deeply, stirring emotions he couldn't name. By evening, Seren's fever broke. His skin resumed its healthy purple luminescence. He will sleep through the night, Elira announced. Tomorrow he will be stronger than before. Kyle nodded his professional assessment, aligning with her maternal certainty. We should rest too. Yet neither moved, both sensing something unspoken hovering between them. Walk with me, Elira finally suggested. They ventured beyond the clinic's perimeter where the settlement's artificial lights dimmed, allowing Nova Eris's night sky to reveal its full splendor. Millions of stars glittered overhead, a nebula painted purples and blues, across 1/4 of the visible cosmos. When I was small, Elira began, my mother told me each star holds someone's dream. She pointed upward. Valara would be there beyond that cluster. Our people believe death isn't an ending, merely a transformation into light. That's beautiful, Kyle said softly. We have similar myths, though science has dulled their poetry somewhat. Is it myth if it brings comfort? She challenged gently. If it carries truth beyond facts? They reached a small rise overlooking the settlement below them. Nova Eris's frontier outpost sprawled in irregular patterns of light and shadow, a testament to humanity's stubborn determination to exist where existence was difficult. You've been alone a long time, Elira observed, not looking at him but upward at the stars. I've been among people, Kale corrected. That's different from not being alone. Elira turned to him then. Her eyes seemed to see through his carefully constructed walls. You saved my son without question, without reward. Her voice carried something deeper than gratitude. You've shown us kindness when we expected none. Anyone would have. No, she interrupted firmly. They wouldn't, most wouldn't. That choice reveals who you truly are. Kyle. She stepped closer, her luminescence brightening in the darkness. Among my people there is a tradition, a sacred exchange given rarely and only with profound purpose. She raised her hand toward his face, hesitating just short of touching him. I wish to share a Valoran bonding memory with you. Kyle's heart raced. What does that mean exactly? It means I would give you something irretrievable, she explained. A portion of myself, my experiences, my truth, a gift that cannot be returned or forgotten. Her eyes held his. It creates a connection that transcends words. Why would you want that with me? Kyle whispered. Because you opened yourself when you could have remained closed. She answered simply, because you deserve to be seen truly as you have seen us. Something in her expression made refusal impossible. Kale nodded wordlessly. Elira stepped forward, placing her palm against his forehead. Her skin felt warmer than human temperature, a gentle current seeming to flow from her touch. Her eyes closed in concentration. Open your mind to me, she whispered. Don't resist what comes. At first, nothing happened. Then a sensation like falling while perfectly still. Kyle gasped as images flooded his consciousness. Not as distant pictures, but as lived experience. He was Elira running through crystalline forests as a child, light fracturing through living structures, creating rainbows everywhere. He felt her joy, her wonder, her belonging. He was Elira, meeting a tall, graceful Valoran, a man named Tavrin, feeling the first stirrings of love, the nervous excitement of courtship, the profound connection of choosing a life mate. He experienced the miracle of carrying Seren, feeling new life, growing within understanding motherhood from its very source. He was Elira, watching their homeworld burn as Krivari ships darkened the skies. Felt Tavrin's hands on her face, his final words, live for him, carry our world within you. He endured the grief, the desperate escape, the years of hiding, moving from world to world, always watchful, always afraid. He felt her terror during the freighter crash, her determination crawling from wreckage, carrying Seren, her desperation seeking help on a human world. He experienced her surprise at finding compassion in a human doctor. The slow blooming of trust. Hope returning after so long. And something else. Something new forming. Something she felt when looking at him. Kyle came back to himself, gasping, tears streaming down his face. His knees buckled. Elira caught him, holding him as emotions too vast to contain poured from him, grief for her losses, gratitude for her trust, wonder at her strength. Now you know me, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Truly. Kale looked at her, seeing her completely, knowing her history, her pain, her courage, her love. I felt everything, he whispered in awe. The bond allows this. She explained, it is how my people truly know one another, beyond words, beyond misconceptions. Can I? He hesitated. Can I share with you too? Elira smiled, touching his tear-stained cheek. The connection flows both ways. Though your mind works differently, I've glimpsed your heart, your love for Adira, your guilt at surviving, your dedication to healing others, your loneliness. Her voice softened, and what you're beginning to feel for us. They stood beneath the infinite stars, two beings from different worlds who had somehow found each other across the vastness of space. Neither needed to speak the words. Forming between them, the memory bond had already revealed what language would only diminish. When Kale finally kissed her, it felt like coming home to a place he'd never been before. Her skin glowed brighter, illuminating them both in the darkness, as two worlds, cosmic strangers, began merging into something entirely new. That night, Kale dreamed in colors he'd never seen before. Memories not his own wove through his consciousness, carrying echoes of Valara's beauty. And when morning came, he understood that he would never be the same again. Echoes of tomorrow. 2 weeks after the memory exchange, Kale's clinic had transformed into something neither fully human nor Valaran, but beautifully. Both Elira had cultivated small, luminescent plants from seeds she carried. They grew in forgotten corners, their gentle glow creating a comforting ambiance. Serene, now fully recovered, followed Kyle during patient visits, absorbing medical knowledge with remarkable aptitude. The bone structure, here, Kyle explained, showing the boy a holographic scan of a human arm, differs from Valeran physiology mainly in density, not design. Because we evolved on a world with lower gravity, Seren observed thoughtfully. But the nerve pathways follow similar patterns. Kale smiled, impressed. Exactly, you'd make an excellent doctor. Like you? Seren asked, his purple features brightening. The simple question touched Kale deeply. The boy had begun looking at him with admiration, even affection, if that's what you want. Mother says you saved me when others wouldn't. Seren continued. She says that makes you special. Before Kale could respond, the clinic's communication system chimed with an urgent tone. Incoming transmission, Planetary Authority, announced the automated voice. Kale frowned. Nova Eris administrators rarely contacted outer settlement clinics. Accept transmission, he commanded. A stern-faced official appeared on screen. Dr. Ronan, we've received reports of unauthorized non-human residents at your facility. The woman's expression remained professionally neutral, but her tone carried unmistakable suspicion. Colony regulations require all non-citizens to register within 24 hours of arrival. Kale maintained his composure, though his heart raced. My patients come from various backgrounds. Administrator Voss, I treat anyone who needs medical attention. Admirable, she replied without warmth. However, intelligence suggests you're harboring Valeran refugees. The recent border incidents with the Krivari Empire make any unregistered Valeran presence a potential security concern. Her eyes narrowed. A mandatory inspection team will arrive tomorrow. 0800 hours cooperation is expected. The transmission ended before Kale could respond. They know we're here. Illyra's voice came from behind him. Her luminescence had dimmed to almost nothing, a sign of her distress. It's probably just routine, Kale assured her without conviction. Illyra shook her head. The Krivari have agents everywhere. They offer bounties for Valeran refugees, especially those with knowledge of our cultural archives. She touched the small pouch at her waist, which I carry. You never mentioned being pursued, Kale said, feeling a chill. I hoped we'd lost them in the crash. She met his gaze steadily. The inspection team may not be who they claim. That evening, after Seren was asleep, Kale and Illyra sat in tense discussion, the small kitchen table between them covered with maps of nearby systems. The Valeran Sanctuary outpost remains our best option. Illyra traced a route across the star chart, but we'd need transport. The commercial shuttles require identification we don't have. I could arrange private transport, Kale suggested. Call in favors from smuggler patients. Too risky, she countered. If the authorities are watching the clinic, then we all leave tonight. Kyle decided. I have an emergency medical shuttle. It's old but reliable enough range to reach the Tyrannus system. There's a trading post there with less scrutiny. Illyra looked up, surprise evident in her violet eyes. You would leave everything you've built here? Kale reached across the table, taking her hands in his. What I've built here was a shelter from living, not a life. The memory bond had changed everything. He now carried pieces of her within him. Understanding, emotions more profound than words could express. I don't want to lose you or Seren. The humans here need you, she reminded him. And I need you. The words came without hesitation. Since the memory bond, I've felt more alive than I have in years. What we have this connection, it's rare, I won't let it slip away. Illyra's skin brightened with emotion. She leaned forward, pressing her forehead to his in a Valeran gesture of deepest intimacy. Then we go together. Their moment was interrupted by the clinic's proximity alarm. A single figure approached through the darkness. Kale checked the security feed, recognizing Juno. His occasional clinic assistant, Dr. Ronan. Juno called urgently once admitted. You have to leave, administration sent advance. Scouts ahead of tomorrow's inspection. The young woman's face showed genuine concern. They were asking questions about purple aliens at the trading post. I came as soon as I heard. How much time do we have? Kyle asked, already moving toward the storage room where emergency supplies were kept. Hours at most. Juno replied, I can delay them, distract them, but you need to be gone before dawn. What followed was a frantic preparation. Kyle gathered essential medical supplies while Elira woke, Serene explaining in gentle terms that another journey lay ahead. They packed lightly, taking only what couldn't be replaced. Kyle prepared the old medical shuttle. Elira approached him carrying a small crystalline object that glowed with inner light. This is a memory vessel, she explained, placing it in his hands. I've stored something inside for you in case. She didn't finish the thought. We're staying together, Kyle insisted. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. The universe doesn't always honor our intentions. Before dawn, they stood at the shuttle's entry ramp. Juno had brought news that official vehicles were approaching from the main settlement at high speed. Thank you, Kyle told his assistant, for everything. Just be happy. Juno replied with a knowing smile. It's about time. As the shuttle rose into the pre-dawn sky, Kale felt both trepidation and exhilaration. He glanced at Elira, seated beside him, her profile illuminated by the control panel's lights behind them. Serene gazed wide-eyed through a viewport at the shrinking landscape. I've never left by choice before, Elira said softly. Always running from, always escaping. And now? Kale asked. She turned to him, her eyes reflecting starlight as the shuttle broke atmosphere. Now we're running toward something together. The shuttle's sensors suddenly blared with proximity warnings. A larger vessel had appeared dropping out of faster-than-light travel directly in their path. Its design was unmistakable even to Kale Kravari. Huntership. Elira whispered, her luminescence fading entirely in terror. Kale's hands tightened on the controls. How did they find us? The inspection team must have been their agents. She turned to check on Serene, who sensed the danger and had gone silent with fear. They track Valeran energy signatures. The communication system crackled to life. Attention, unauthorized vessel. You are carrying fugitives claimed by the Kravari Empire. Power down and prepare to be boarded. Kale's mind raced through options. None promising. He wasn't a military pilot. The medical shuttle had minimal defenses, no weapons. The emergency beacon, he muttered. If I can modify it to broadcast on Nova Aris military frequencies, they'll destroy us before help arrives. Elira countered, as the hunter ship moved to intercept, deploying grappling technology. Elira made a decision. She removed the memory pouch from her waist. Kyle, I can create a distraction. My people's energy, when released, can disrupt their tracking systems. Her expression grew determined. It might give you and Serene a chance to escape. No, Kyle protested. Understanding her intention, we stay together. We find another way. The hunter ship fired a warning shot, energy crackling past. Their viewport time had run out. Elira placed her hand against Kale's cheek. Some bonds transcend physical presence. She whispered. Remember? In that moment of desperate uncertainty, with threat looming before them, and escape seemingly impossible, Kale realized that what they'd found together was worth any risk, perhaps even worth dying for. The Kravari ship loomed larger, their small shuttle trapped in its shadow as dawn broke over Nova Ares. The future they'd imagined hanging by the thinnest thread as three hearts from different worlds beat as one against the darkness closing in. Worlds bridged, the Kravari hunter ship's grappling beam locked onto their shuttle, drawing them inexorably toward the larger vessel's docking bay. Mother Serene whispered from behind them, his small voice tight with fear. Something shifted in Kale's mind. The memory bond with Elira had left him with more than emotions and experiences. It had given him fragments of Valeran understanding. Knowledge that wasn't his yet somehow was. The crystalline memory vessel, he said suddenly. It disrupts energy patterns, doesn't it? Illyra's eyes widened. Yes, but... And the Kravari tracking system locks onto Velaran energy signatures. Kale continued, thoughts racing. If we amplify the vessel's resonance through the shuttle's communication array, we could create interference. Illyra finished, understanding dawning. But the vessel contains personal memories. It would destroy them. Kale met her gaze. Some things matter more than memories. With the hunter ship's docking procedures initiating, they worked frantically. Kale modified the shuttle's communication system, while Illyra prepared the memory crystal. Seren watched with solemn understanding beyond his years. Ready, Kale announced as the shuttle shuddered from another grappling pulse. Illyra hesitated for just a moment, her hands cradling the crystal that contained pieces of her people's history, her family's legacy, her own past. She placed it into the modified transmitter. Now, Kale activated the system. The crystal glowed with increasing brilliance, vibrating at frequencies beyond human perception. A high-pitched tone filled the cabin, making them wince. The shuttle's instruments flickered through. The viewport they watched as energy disruptions rippled across the hunter ship's surface. Its grappling beam wavered, then failed. Lights across its hull dimmed, then flared erratically. Their systems are destabilizing, Kyle observed, but so are ours. Warning. Indicators flashed across the shuttle's control panel. Engine overload, guidance failure, navigation compromise. The crystal's energy was affecting all electronic systems. We need to break away now, Illyra urged, before both ships fail completely. Kale disengaged the modified transmitter, but the disruption had already cascaded through their systems. The shuttle lurched free from the disabled hunter ship, but without proper control, they tumbled through space emergency thrusters, firing automatically. To stabilize. Can you land it? Illyra asked, clutching the seat as the shuttle shook violently. Kale studied the failing instruments. Not land crash, maybe. He looked back at Seren. Secure yourself like I showed you. To Illyra. We're going to aim for the Tyrannus trading outpost. It's closer than returning to Nova Eris. What followed tested every skill Kale possessed. The shuttle fought him every moment of the descent atmosphere burning around them as they plummeted toward Tyrannus. Only the most basic systems remained functional. The viewports glowed red with re-entry heat. Stay with me, he muttered to the failing craft. Just a little longer. The trading outpost appeared below them, a sprawling collection of structures more temporary than permanent, populated by those existing on civilization's edges. Kale aimed for an open area beyond the settlement's perimeter. Impact came with crushing force. The shuttle skidded across rocky terrain structures, screaming in protest. Emergency restraints deployed, cushioning them from the worst, but not all. The world dissolved into chaos, noise, darkness, pain. Consciousness returned to Kale in fragments, light filtering through cracked viewports, the smell of scorched metal, the taste of blood, sounds of movement. Kyle. Illyra's voice. Urgent, worried. Kyle, wake up. He forced his eyes open, finding her face above his. Her skin was lacerated in several places, iridescent fluid seeping from the wounds, but she was alive. Her hands moved across his body, assessing injuries with newfound medical knowledge gleaned from their time together. Seren? Kyle managed to ask. I'm here, came the small voice. The boy appeared beside his mother, a cut above one eye but otherwise intact. The emergency protocols worked. Kale tried to move, gasping as pain flared in his side. Broken ribs, he diagnosed, maybe internal bleeding. We need to move, Illyra said, looking through a shattered viewport. The crash will draw attention, some helpful, some not. With effort, they extracted themselves from the ruined shuttle, Kyle leaning heavily on Illyra as they made their way toward the outpost, Seren carrying what few supplies had survived. Behind them, the memory crystal lay shattered, its light extinguished, its contents lost to save their lives. The trading post of Tyrannus existed in perpetual twilight, a place where questions weren't asked and pasts remained. unexamined. They found shelter in an abandoned storage unit converted to living space by previous desperate travelers. Days passed as they recovered, assessing their situation. The Kravari hunter ship had not reappeared, suggesting their gambit had succeeded, at least temporarily. Kale's injuries healed slowly without proper medical equipment. Elira and Seren tended him with gentle determination. "We lost everything," Kale observed one evening as Elira changed his bandages. "Your memories, my clinic, our supplies." "Not everything," Elira corrected. Her fingers brushed his temple. "The bond remains. What matters most is here and here." She placed her hand over his heart. Serene sat nearby, sketching on salvaged materials, drawing images of both Nova Aris and Velara worlds he carried within himself, bridges between realities. A week after the crash, as Kale's strength returned, Elira brought news from her cautious explorations of the trading post. "There's a Velaran diplomatic vessel at Ko, the far docking bay," she reported, excitement coloring her voice, making her skin glow brighter. "They're collecting refugees, offering sanctuary." "Then you can reach the outpost after all," Kyle said, feeling both relief and a strange hollowness. "You and Seren will be safe among your people." Elira studied him, her violet eyes seeing far deeper than surface thoughts. "You believe I would leave you behind?" "I would understand," Kale said carefully. "Your people, your culture, your future." Seren looked up from his drawings. "Aren't you coming with us?" The question hung in the air, simple yet profound. Kale had left everything behind on Nova Aris without hesitation, yet some part of him still doubted his place in their lives. Elira knelt before him, taking his hands in hers. "The Velaran word for family translates as those who share memories," she explained. "By our deepest traditions, you are already part of us." Her luminescence brightened with emotion. "The bond we share cannot be broken by distance or circumstance." "What about your people?" Kale asked. "Would they accept a human among them?" "My people value wisdom, compassion, healing," she replied. "You have shown all these and more." Her voice softened. "The question is not whether they would accept you, but whether you can accept a life among the stars, never truly belonging to one world, but creating something new between them." Kale thought of Nova Aris. The life he'd built there had been a shelter from pain, not a source of joy. What he'd found with Elira and Seren was different. It was possibility, connection, future. "Home isn't a place," he said, finally understanding the truth that had been growing within him. "It's where we create meaning together." The following day, they approached the Velaran diplomatic vessel, Kale walking steadily beside Elira, Seren between them, holding both their hands. The ship's design was unlike any human craft, organic curves and crystalline surfaces that seemed alive. With light, a tall, dignified Velaran emerged from the entry ramp, his gaze falling first on Elira, then Seren, with clear relief, then questioningly to Kale. "This is Theron, Chief Cultural Archivist," Elira explained. "We studied together before the fall of Velara." Theron greeted Elira with formal gestures, then spoke in heavily accented common language. "We received fragments of distress signal, many believed lost in freighter incident." His eyes moved to Kale. "A human accompanies you. This is unexpected." "This human saved my son's life," Elira replied with quiet dignity. "He carries our memories through the bonding we are connected." Surprise registered on Theron's features. The memory bond is sacred, rarely offered outside our kind. He studied Kale with new interest. "You understand what this means?" "I'm learning," Kale answered honestly. Theron seemed to reach a decision. "The sanctuary outpost welcomes all who preserve our ways." He gestured toward the ship, "including those who help us create new ones." As they boarded the Velaran vessel, Kale took a final look at Tyrannus, the twilight world that had been merely another stopping point in a journey with no clear destination. Behind them lay the wreckage of past lives. Before them stretched uncertainty, possibility, hope. The ship's interior glowed with the same luminescence as Elira's skin, living technology that responded to presence and emotion. Seren ran ahead exploring with childlike wonder while crew members watched the human doctor with curious but not unfriendly eyes. "It won't be easy," Elira said softly beside him, being between worlds, never fully belonging to either. "Perhaps that's where we're meant to be," Kale replied, taking her hand. In the space between building bridges. That evening, as the diplomatic vessel prepared for departure, Kale stood with Elira and Seren in an observation chamber, the transparent walls revealing stars stretching to infinity, planets orbiting distant suns, some perhaps holding life unknown waiting to be discovered. Seren pointed excitedly. "Is that where we're going?" "Yes," Elira answered, "a new beginning." Kale felt Elira's hand slip into his, her purple skin glowing with emotion against his human complexion, different yet perfectly matched. Their fingers intertwined as naturally as their lives had become. "What happens now?" he asked. Elira smiled, the expression illuminating her entire being. "Now we create new memories together." As the ship accelerated into the darkness between stars, 3 hearts beat as one. A human doctor who had found healing in giving it. A Valeran woman who had discovered hope when all seemed lost. A child who carried the future of both worlds within him. They were neither fully human nor entirely Valeran, but something new, something that transcended the boundaries of species and space. The memory bond between them had created something the universe had never seen before. A family forged across stars, a love that bridged worlds. And as Nova, Aris, and Tyrannus disappeared behind them, becoming merely points of light among countless others, Kale understood that their journey wasn't ending. It was just beginning. A story written not in the language of any single world, but in the universal tongue of connection, courage, and love. In the vast emptiness of space, they had found the most precious thing of all, each other, and that would always be enough.